called them a disgrace and forced them out, his wife and their newborn triplets. But 2 decades later, the unthinkable happened. Subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The morning sun poured through the kitchen window, warm like a promise, the kind that never held in that house. Nia stood quietly at the counter, one hand on her pregnant belly, the other stirring oatmeal she could barely stand. Everything felt heavier in her 3rd trimester. The silence, the tension, even the air. It hadn't always been this way. There was a time when Derek made her laugh across pillows, when his touch felt like comfort, not obligation. But that was before the whispers, before the judgmental glances at church, before his mother's frozen smiles and veiled comments every Sunday. Derek, the pride of Briarfield, a clean-cut architect and pastor's son, brought home a woman who didn't fit their narrow mold, and at first he seemed proud to hold her hand in front of the congregation, proud to kiss her forehead and tell her she was beautiful because of her skin, not despite it. They met at a bookstore event she was hosting. She was organizing a literacy drive, and he offered to sponsor it. His voice was calm, his charm disarming. Within 8 months, he proposed. Just the 2 of them under fairy lights in a park. No crowd, just jazz from his phone. She said yes. He promised peace, stability, forever. Their wedding was quiet. His family invited few. Her side was smaller still. Her mom had passed. Her dad had cut contact. It was just her and the man she thought was her future. They moved into his family's second home, a tidy 1-story with creaky floorboards and a white fence. Nia turned the nursery into a dream with soft lavender wallpaper and Maya Angelou quotes. She bought tiny onesies and books. Derek assembled the crib, then vanished into his office. The distance grew slowly. Missed dinners, withdrawing his hand in public. His mother's visits became more frequent and less subtle. "Maybe don't laugh so loudly," she'd say, and that head wrap, maybe avoid it around the neighbors. Derek never defended her. Nia tried shrinking, smiling, pleasing. Then she got pregnant. She hoped the baby would pull them closer. And for a while, it did. Derek said he was ready. He even smiled, until the ultrasound. 3 heartbeats. 3 girls. He laughed nervously. She reached for his hand. It was already gone. From then on, he came home later, spoke less. His mother's sighs grew sharper. Nia pushed through. She meditated, prayed, read every parenting book she could find. Still kissed him goodnight even when he turned away. When labor began on a gray Tuesday, he didn't answer her call. She rode alone in an ambulance, whispering to her unborn girls that everything would be okay. It was a long, grueling 27 hours. The first baby came out bold and crying. The second, calm but strong. The third arrived in silence, until she let out a soft cry that turned into a perfect trio of wails. Nia felt something in her chest unlock. When Derek finally arrived, he stood in the doorway like a stranger. His eyes scanned the room, 3 tiny daughters in her arms. His expression turned cold. "All girls?" he asked. Nia smiled weakly. "They're perfect." He didn't smile back. Instead, he said the words that would haunt her forever. "You can't come back." She blinked. "What?" "I'm sorry," he said, "but I can't do this. This isn't the life I signed up for." Her voice cracked, but held steady. "They're your daughters." He looked down, face unreadable. "Oh no," he said. "They're yours. I need space." That's all Derek said. Then Eleanor stepped in from the hallway, arms crossed, no emotion in her face. She didn't say a word, but Nia knew. The verdict had been delivered. The next morning, a nurse handed her a manila envelope with discharge papers. No flowers, no visitors. Derek had quietly paid for a few extra nights, and nothing more. With sore stitches and trembling arms, Nia dressed her newborn daughters in hospital-donated sleepers and packed what little she owned into a worn tote bag. A janitor wheeled her to the exit. She ended up on a metal bench outside the emergency room, beneath the humming red letters. The world around her didn't stop. Cars rolled by, people walked past, unaware that something irreversible had just happened. Her 3 daughters slept, nestled against her chest. Nia didn't cry. Not when the wind turned sharp, not when pain throbbed across her body. She just held them tighter and whispered names she hadn't chosen yet, but soon would, because even in this moment, exhausted, abandoned, utterly alone, she knew one thing. This wasn't her ending. This was the beginning. The sun dipped lower. The bench turned to ice beneath her. For nearly 2 hours, she sat there, frozen by shock, overwhelmed by the unknown. The girls shifted under thin hospital blankets. Nia's arms ached from holding them, but she wouldn't let go. Eventually, the streetlight flickered on. She stood barely, her legs weak, her body still fragile. One baby strapped against her chest, both hands gripping the handles of a squeaky hospital cart filled with diapers, a half-used formula can, and a few donated clothes. No home. No number to call. Just 3 newborns and a city that didn't know she existed. She walked aimlessly through unfamiliar streets, past old buildings and neon lights. The air smelled like grease and metal. She paused in front of a church. It was locked. She leaned against the brick, wincing from the pain in her side. One of the girls whimpered, then another. Soon, all 3 cried. Nia rocked them, whispering comfort she barely felt herself. Near midnight, she found it, a small sign taped to a glass door. Women and children only, ring after 9 p.m. Her hand trembled as she pressed the buzzer. A voice crackled. Yes? Nia stepped closer. I just gave birth. I have nowhere else. Silence. Then a click. The door opened. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed. A woman in a faded sweatshirt that read Faith Works looked up from her desk. One glance at Nia, and she stood. Follow me. No questions, no judgment. Just a cot in a shared room. 2 other women sleeping beside her. The air was stale, the paint peeled, but it was warm. Nia laid her daughters down, using her own coat as their blanket. She watched them breathe, her hand on their tiny chests. And then, for the first time since Derek's words, she broke. Not gentle tears, but deep, shaking sobs that soaked the pillow. Morning brought oatmeal on a plastic tray, orange juice in a cup, and a knock from a caseworker named Carla. Tall, warm, no nonsense. She'd worked there for years, had seen women like Nia too many times, discarded, forgotten, strong anyway. You've got 30 days, she said. After that, we aim for transitional housing. Any work experience? Nia whispered. School library. Carla nodded. All right, you're in the system. Meet the employment coordinator. If you're able, help with childcare rotation. Earn your stay. Support others. Nia nodded. Anything to move forward. The first weeks blurred. Every 2 hours, a baby cried. Sometimes 2, sometimes all 3. Nia learned to nurse 2 while bouncing the 3rd with her foot. She slept in snatches. Her body never stopped hurting, but she kept going. She bathed them in a shelter sink, swaddled them in mismatched blankets, whispered promises into tiny ears, ones she wasn't sure she could keep. Other women started noticing how calm she stayed, how gently she spoke, how she never complained. One night, Carla saw her folding laundry in the common room. The triplets slept nearby in a donated stroller. You're doing more than surviving, Carla said. You're building something, even if you don't see it yet. Nia didn't respond, but that night, she found an old notebook in the donation bin, and she began to write. Not dreams, not stories, plans, budgets, applications, steps forward. She made lists, dozens of them, feeding times, nap schedules, development milestones, each line written in small, neat handwriting, like blueprints to climb out of the hole life had shoved her into. Her first job came as a fluke. A part-time receptionist position opened at a small clinic on the east side. The pay was minimum wage, and the dress code called for business casual, clothes she didn't own. Carla found her a pair of black slacks and a worn blouse from the shelter's donation bin. When Nia arrived to apply, a toddler began screaming in the waiting room. While others flinched, Nia knelt, spoke softly, and calmed the child. Miss Trudy, the clinic manager, raised an eyebrow and muttered, "Grace under pressure. We need that." She hired Nia on the spot. The shelter arranged daycare. It wasn't perfect, packed and noisy, but it was safe. Every morning, Nia kissed her daughters goodbye, stood tall at the bus stop, and held hope deep inside her. The clinic was a whirlwind of ringing phones, impatient patients, and tight deadlines, but it was a beginning. Every cent she earned went to essentials: diapers, formula, baby clothes. She often skipped meals to make sure her girls never did. Success to Nia wasn't a paycheck. It was weight gains, giggles, first steps across the shelter floor. 2 months in, Carla approached with news. A spot had opened in transitional housing. Small income-based rent, but private. Nia whispered, "Yes, please." The apartment was barely more than a room. The floor creaked, the plumbing moaned. But there was a lock on the door, a closet for baby clothes, a chipped window where light slipped in every morning. She moved in on a Saturday and scrubbed every surface until her hands throbbed. Rearranged the space 3 times until the crib fit just right. That night, lying beside her daughters in the flickering warmth of a noisy old heater, she smiled. It was hers, not borrowed, not temporary, hers. She started leaving handwritten notes on the fridge. "We are more than what was done to us. Dignity is not a luxury, it's our right." At the clinic, when coworkers asked about her daughters, she proudly pulled out pictures. No shame, just love. There were still hard days. Colds, missed buses, canceled daycare. But Nia built rhythm out of chaos. She learned how to fix leaks, cook on a single hot plate, stretch every dollar, and ask for help when needed, and give it when she could. And she never let go of her daughters. She gave them names with meaning. The loudest one, the fierce firstborn, she named Zora, after the writer who once said, "I do not weep at the world. I'm too busy sharpening my oyster knife." The quiet one, watchful and calm, she named May, short for Malaya, which means resilient beauty. The smallest, born with silence but eyes full of fire, she named Layla, meaning born at night, because though she arrived in darkness, she would rise into light. Nia whispered their names each night like a prayer etched into the universe. Time passed. The shelter became a memory. So did the locked church doors, the hospital bench, Derek's cold goodbye. What remained was this: a woman rebuilding from nothing, 3 daughters growing stronger by the day, and an apartment not filled with luxury, but with something far more enduring: hope. Hope that didn't beg for permission. Hope that simply was. The sun cut through thin curtains in long golden strips. Fried plantains from a neighbor's kitchen mixed with the morning sounds of traffic. At the stove, Nia flipped pancakes 2 at a time. Zora clung to her leg. May sat by the door, quietly reading. Layla babbled to herself, organizing spoons on the linoleum floor. They were 3 years old now, each her own storm. The apartment had no bedrooms, no TV, no dining table, but it had warmth, it had rhythm, it had love. Nia had shaped that life from scraps others had tossed aside. The mattress came from a church drive. The dresser was salvaged from a curb. Their clothes were faded and mismatched, but folded with care. Every Sunday, Nia reset their world. Ironed 3 school shirts they rotated, packed lunches in reused bags, and caught the 6:30 bus to the clinic. She returned by sunset to stories, hugs, and songs. It was in the quiet of those nights, after dishes were done, after tiny voices faded to sleep, that Nia allowed herself to dream. Notebook open, future unfolding, Zora the leader, May the healer, Layla the light, May the healer, Layla the creator. Nia didn't expect them to become exactly what she imagined. Life doesn't follow scripts, but she believed in preparing the soil, even when it seemed barren. She spoke to them like they understood, even when they were too young to reply. "You are powerful," she would say. "You deserve everything good. The world might not love you first, but it will respect you last." Zora, bold and endlessly curious, was the first to speak in full sentences. She questioned everything. Why was the bus late? Why did the sky change colors? Why didn't the lady downstairs ever smile? Once, in a grocery line, she asked a woman why her skin looked like coffee with too much milk, then declared, "I like my color better." Nia apologized, cheeks burning, but at home she hugged her tighter. She didn't want daughters who apologized for existing. May, ever observant, noticed what others didn't. She could tell when Nia limped, even when Nia tried to hide it. She remembered who was allergic to peanuts and who liked banana bread. She lined up her dolls like patients and checked their temperatures with popsicle sticks. Teachers called her an old soul. Nia just called her magic. And Layla, the smallest, most stubborn, turned every moment into music. She banged pot lids into drums, hummed nonsense while stacking cereal boxes, and sang silly songs that made her sisters stop fighting mid-argument. She was the last to speak, but the first to feel rhythm. Nia started calling her my little metronome. They were growing fast, too fast. Each new month brought another pair of shoes, another set of forms, another expense. Nia worked longer hours, picked up weekend house cleaning, and offered to babysit kids in the building. She knew how to stretch a single pack of ground turkey across 3 meals, which dollar store had the best price on wipes, which buses ran on time, and which didn't. She was exhausted, constantly, but never alone. The women in the neighborhood, most of them mothers or grandmothers, began to notice. First, it was hand-me-downs, then leftover groceries. Then a quiet, unspoken network formed. Miss Bessie brought sweet tea on Sundays. Angela, a hairdresser, braided the girls' hair for free. In return, Nia ironed uniforms, watched babies, and always shared her famous jollof rice. Still, there were cracks. Zora came home crying after a boy on the playground called her dirty and said her family was strange. May stopped speaking for almost a week after a teacher asked why her father never came to school events. And Layla, who overheard more than she understood, began drawing the same picture again and again, a house with 1 adult and 3 little girls, thick black lines, angry red scribbles. Nia didn't sugarcoat it. "Some people don't understand us yet," she told them, "and that's okay, because we understand each other." At night, she didn't tell fairy tales. She told truths, stories of women who built empires from nothing, who planted gardens in broken soil, who turned rejection into legacy. She spoke of Sojourner Truth, Shirley Chisholm, Maya Angelou. She told them about her own mother, a seamstress who never learned to read but could sew a perfect line in the dark. And when it came to their father, she said only this: he wasn't ready for all this greatness. That's not your fault. By the time they turned 5, they were ready for school. Nia dressed them in donated uniforms, white shirts, navy skirts, black shoes a size too big. She wrote their names on the tags by hand: Zora Grant, May Grant, Layla Grant. They walked to school hand in hand, backpacks bouncing, braids neatly done. Some parents smiled, others didn't. On the first day, a teacher asked why only the mother had come. Zora looked her in the eye and said, "We don't have a daddy. It's just us and Mommy, and we're good." The teacher said nothing more. School brought routine and new challenges. Zora raised her hand for every question and every school play. May joined the library club and read books twice her age. Layla found the music room and taught herself piano by ear. Nia showed up for every parent meeting, sometimes in scrubs, sometimes with groceries by her feet. She listened as teachers said things like, polite but quiet, bright but distracted, creative but needs focus. She heard it all, and still, she saw them clearly. They were growing in soil not meant for them, but they were growing all the same. Every evening, she read spelling words while stirring soup, braided hair while reviewing math problems. She celebrated every A with a hug and every C with hope. Under her mattress, Nia kept a folder filled with drawings, certificates, and report cards, quiet medals from a war no one else could see. On nights when the girls were asleep, she would sometimes slip out onto the fire escape, resting against the railing, watching the city breathe under a sky too big for her pain. She thought of the man who walked away, wondered if he had a new family, if he ever thought about the 3 girls who carried his eyes. Then she let it go. He had chosen absence. She had chosen everything else. Inside, her daughters slept, limbs tangled like petals on a single bloom, their breath a soft rhythm behind the door. Nia turned off the light and stepped quietly away. Tomorrow would come, and they would meet it, together. Back in Briarfield, the winds had shifted, but Derek barely noticed. The proud trees in his father's yard had been trimmed too far back, now thin and brittle. The church had changed too, a new pastor, a younger, more diverse congregation. Sermons filled with modern metaphors and voices that referenced black theologians. The old hardware shop by the post office was gone. Even the grocery store had new owners. The town was evolving, but Derek was stuck. It had been 6 years since he left that hospital room, 6 years since he told Nia she couldn't come home. In that time, he had tried to rebuild, like a man fixing drywall with bare hands. He remarried. Linda, polished, proper, with the kind of last name that drew nods at the country club. She wore pearls, didn't ask questions, didn't quote Baldwin. She was what his family called appropriate, and for a while, Derek convinced himself he'd found balance. When Linda became pregnant, everything shifted again. A boy, a legacy, a second chance. They named him Jacob, after Derek's grandfather, painted the nursery soft blue and ordered custom wooden letters for the wall. Derek imagined football games, scraped knees, the sound of running feet, but Jacob arrived too soon. 33 weeks, underweight, struggling. Machines blinked. Tubes hissed. Nurses moved quickly as Derek stood outside the glass, helpless. He prayed harder than he had in years. Jacob's heart was weak, his lungs underdeveloped. He couldn't hold down milk. Still, Derek held him, rocking gently, singing lullabies from memory, whispering that everything would be okay. But the days turned to weeks, the weeks into months. Jacob came home with oxygen tubes and a strict feeding schedule. Linda took leave, tried to adjust, but exhaustion hit hard. Her words turned sharp, her warmth cold. She started sleeping in the guest room. Derek stayed up with Jacob, night after night, eyes fixed on the ceiling, wondering where it all had gone wrong. Then, one night, after another frantic ER visit, Linda snapped. She stood in the kitchen, wine glass in hand, her voice flat. "This boy is not normal." Derek froze. "I gave up everything," she said. "My job, my friends, my body. For this?" She gestured toward the hallway. "For a child who can't even breathe on his own?" "He's our son," Derek whispered. "No, he's your mistake," she snapped. The glass hit the sink and shattered. That night, Linda packed a bag. A week later, she emailed him. She wanted a divorce. By the time Jacob turned 2, Derek had sold nearly everything. The generator, the riding mower, his father's old tool chest. Gone. He took whatever carpentry jobs he could find. His body was aging fast, his hands stiff, his back tight. His once bright future had dimmed into side gigs and creaky rental units that smelled of mildew and memories. And Jacob? Still fragile. Every cough, a potential crisis. Every outing, a risk. It was always a risk. Staying home, watching each breath like a countdown. Derek barely slept, fearing the silence between those shallow inhales. The apartment was small, beige, forgettable, but he scrubbed every corner, sterilized every bottle, cooked soft food, whispered lullabies and quiet prayers into Jacob's ear. He loved that boy with everything he had, but love doesn't cover medical bills. He pawned his wedding ring, borrowed from friends, ignored debt collectors. When the power went out in July, he warmed bottled water on a single burner and used damp towels to bring down Jacob's fever. And in the quiet, he found his thoughts drifting toward Nia, toward the daughters he never mentioned, not even when a nurse once asked if Jacob had siblings. He had buried them in silence so deep that even their names felt lost to time. Then Jacob got sick again. A cough turned to wheezing. Fever followed. Derek rocked him through the night, whispering hope, but by morning, Jacob's lips were blue. In the ER, a nurse asked for insurance. He had none. 4 hours later, Jacob exhaled and didn't inhale again. There was no scream, no scene, just a father holding stillness. The funeral was small. The casket was too white, too small. Linda didn't come. She sent a card. Derek read it once, then burned it in the sink. 30 days. That's what his landlord gave him. Sorry, Derek. I can't keep the place off the market. He packed what little he had, some clothes, an old Bible, a photo of Jacob, and moved into a half-finished house on the city's edge. No insulation. Rain poured through holes in the roof. He slept on a pile of blankets, lit candles for heat, and coughed into silence. The town stopped seeing him. Just another man time forgot, until one night, he collapsed on a sidewalk, steps from the pharmacy. Someone called an ambulance. He was listed as John Doe. And on the 3rd floor of that hospital, a young doctor named May buttoned her coat and began her rounds. She didn't know the man in room 304 was her father. He didn't know the daughter he abandoned would be the one checking his pulse. Far away, Zora, now 9, stood in front of the school board. Her shoes were worn, her coat second-hand, but her voice didn't shake. She was there to demand a playground for her neighborhood. A journalist, there for another story, snapped a photo. It made the local paper. Nia clipped it and taped it to the inside of their kitchen cabinet. She never took it down. The girls were growing into themselves. At 13, they walked the world with cautious hope and quiet armor. Zora became the voice, bold, uncompromising. May turned inward, drawn to science, fascinated by anatomy, devouring old magazines by borrowed lamplight. Layla stayed quiet, but her fingers danced across keyboards, teaching herself to speak the language of code and machines. Nia watched from the edges, steady and silent, knowing their names were never just names. They were seeds, and they were blooming. Every morning, Nia packed 3 lunches, each with a folded note inside, reminders of love, strength, and belief. Every night they sat around the same chipped kitchen table, trading victories and frustrations like currency. Nia worked 2 jobs, clinic secretary by day, house cleaner by night, and still managed to iron uniforms, pay field trip fees, and never miss a single parent-teacher meeting. The girls never asked about their father. They didn't need to. His absence spoke louder than any name, but where there was no father, there was each other. They fought over chores, over who wore what, over the last piece of cornbread, but every fight ended in laughter or tears or both. They shared secrets, shoes, dreams whispered into the dark. "You girls are the whole tree," Nia would say. "My roots and my branches. You hold me up." One evening, after a talent showcase at school, the principal approached her quietly. "You need to see this," he said, handing her a USB drive. Nia played the footage on Layla's old laptop. There was Zora, delivering a spoken word piece on housing injustice, May, calmly answering adult panelists about healthcare inequity, and Layla, demonstrating an app she had coded herself to connect donors with underfunded classrooms. Nia watched it 3 times. Then she cried. That same week, the girls were nominated for a citywide scholarship sponsored by a Dallas nonprofit. The process was intense. Essays, interviews, late-night rehearsals. Nia helped how she could, massaging tired feet, making extra rice, laying blankets so they could work on the floor. "You don't have to win," she told them. "Just show them who you are." 2 months later, the letter arrived. All 3 were chosen, full tuition through high school, mentorship, laptops, transportation stipends, a leadership retreat. For the first time in years, Nia exhaled. Their new charter school meant longer commutes and tighter schedules, but it also meant stocked labs, real art supplies, and teachers who stayed late. Zora joined debate and quickly became captain. May thrived in biology and landed a university internship. Layla advanced beyond the curriculum and began building real apps for real businesses. Nia bought a corkboard and pinned up their lives. Zora in red, May in green, Layla in blue. She called it the map of our progress. But not everything came easy. Zora faced backlash for calling out racial profiling on school buses. When warned to choose her battles, she responded with a 4-page letter, CC'd to every major local outlet. May fainted in class after skipping meals to save money for a science trip. Layla was accused of plagiarism, her app too advanced for a 9th grader, until 3 teachers stepped in and cleared her name. Through it all, Nia stood behind them, never in front, never in the way. "You don't owe anyone your place," she told them. "They're lucky to have you." By 16, the community knew their names. Zora's speeches went viral. May's research was published. Layla, using an alias, was earning real money coding for clients across the country. They shared their income, setting aside portions for rent, repairs, and groceries. The apartment still had peeling paint and creaky floors, but now it had Wi-Fi from one of Layla's clients, shelves filled with textbooks and journals, a second-hand printer, and laughter echoing from every corner. They didn't call it the apartment anymore. They called it our place. At night, they still squeezed into the same bed, trading stories, jokes, and playful jabs about dirty dishes. But the bed was shrinking, and the world was getting bigger. College applications loomed. Careers began to form as more than ideas, and for the first time, they were imagining futures in different cities, different states, different worlds. The idea of them living in different countries scared Nia sometimes. The silence of an empty apartment, the mornings without laughter. But she had raised them for this, raised them to go. One morning, while mopping clinic floors on her day off, Nia's phone rang. It was May. "Mom," her voice was shaking with excitement. "I got it." "Got what?" "Early acceptance, full ride, medical school." Nia sank to the floor, mop still in hand, and wept. That same evening, Zora burst in with news. She'd been chosen for a National Youth Fellowship. Ela followed, announcing her first long-term freelance contract, remote work, for a logistics firm in the UK. Nia didn't say much. She just smiled, nodded, and made extra rice for dinner. Later that night, with the girls asleep, she pulled out the wooden box from under her bed. Inside, baby photos, report cards, certificates, every scholarship letter. She added May's acceptance to the collection and sat in silence, staring at a life documented in paper. They had grown. They had flown. She wasn't surprised. just grateful. And yet, somewhere in that late hour, as wind brushed against the windows, Nia let herself ask the one question she'd buried for years. Would he be proud? Would he recognize them now? The girls he once called too much? She closed the box, turned off the light, and whispered into the dark, "We were always more than enough." At that very moment, in a hospital across the city, a man lay in a sterile room. No name, no ID, just John Doe. His hands trembled under the thin blanket. His chest rose with effort. And he had no idea that the answer to the question that haunted him, what had become of them, was already written into the lives of the daughters he had left behind. Inside St. Teresa's Medical Center, the air held the antiseptic stillness of early morning. May moved quickly down the third-floor corridor, clipboard in hand, white coat trailing behind her. She hadn't slept much. She rarely did. But her steps were confident, her focus unshakable. Patients were waking. Nurses moved like quiet gears in a well-worn machine, checking vitals, delivering meds, whispering behind curtains. May greeted them by name, reviewed charts with practiced ease. At just 23, she was one of the youngest residents in the program. No makeup, curls pinned back, badge centered over her chest like a declaration. Sometimes patients asked, "Are you shadowing someone?" She'd smile. "No, I'm the doctor." That morning, a nurse approached the station. "Dr. Grant, we've got a new one in 316, mid-40s to 50s, collapsed near a bus stop, no ID. EMTs say he's been living rough, malnourished, dehydrated. Pneumonia's likely." May made a note on her tablet. "Vitals? Fever, weak pulse. We started fluids and antibiotics." "Thanks," she said, already walking. Her shoes clicked softly against the floor as her mind ran calculations, drug interactions, dosage, risk flags. She pulled back the curtain in 316 and stepped inside. The man lay curled on his side, pale, hollow, his breath ragged and slow, skin grayed by time and something deeper than age. She checked his chart. Name, unknown. Alias, John Doe. May adjusted the IV, then leaned closer. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes flickered open, unfocused, red. She touched his shoulder gently. He flinched, but didn't move away. "You're at St. Teresa's. You collapsed earlier. We're taking care of you." He blinked slowly. His mouth opened but made no sound. She held a cup of water to his lips, helped him sit. His breath was shallow. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're safe," May said softly. He nodded. "I don't have money." "You don't need any. It's covered." His head rested back, his eyes closed again. May straightened the blanket, checked the drip, then stepped out. At the nurse's station, she logged her updates and flagged his case for further tests. Nothing about the man was unique. They saw dozens like him every year. And yet, something about him lingered. She didn't know why. That night, off shift and back in her small apartment, May called home. Nia answered on the third ring. "Hey, baby. Hey, mommy. You sound tired." "I'm always tired," May smiled. "But I needed to tell you something." "Everything okay?" "Yeah. I just had a patient today. There's something about him. I don't know. He reminded me of someone." Nia's voice over the phone paused, not sharply, but like the air before a storm. "Someone?" "Yeah." He said his name was Derek. Silence. Heavy. Measured. "I remember," May continued, her voice quiet. "You once told us that was our father's name." More silence. Then Nia said softly, "Let me call you back." May waited. 10 minutes passed. No call. She tried to sleep. She couldn't. 2 days later, Nia appeared, unannounced, standing in the hospital lobby, with her Sunday coat buttoned tight, purse clutched like a shield. "Where is he?" she asked. You want to see him? May said, blinking. Nia nodded once. They walked in silence. The scent of bleach and coffee filled the hall. Phones rang. Nurses moved past. But inside May's chest, the air felt still. Room 316. Derek sat upright, eating slowly from a bowl of rice. His hands trembled with each spoonful. He looked up and saw her. The spoon slipped. Rice scattered. His lips parted, but no words came. Nia stepped forward, not angry, not soft, just present. "Adugo," he whispered. May froze. Nia didn't reply. Her eyes held no rage, no tears, just a silence so thick it shrank the room. Derek tried to stand, failed, reached out, then stopped, ashamed. "You're here?" he rasped. "After all this time?" May turned to her mother. "You know him?" Nia nodded. "This is your father." May stepped back slightly. Her hands dropped to her sides. "The man who left us?" she asked. "Yes," Nia said plainly. "The man who called us a mistake." Derek broke, sobs twisting through his frame, raw and broken. "I didn't know," he cried. You're my daughter?" May didn't answer, her face unreadable. She turned to Nia. "I need time," and walked out. Derek collapsed into his hands. Nia stood beside him. "Do you remember what the nurse said the day they were born?" she asked. Derek blinked, confused. "She said they were born under Akwani, that they were rare, that their father would be blessed if he honored them." Derek swallowed. "I was afraid." "No," Nia replied. "You were proud, and now you're empty." She turned and left him, sitting in the rubble of his own choices. The next few days moved slowly. In May's apartment, Nia sat with a photo album in her lap. Birthdays, school awards, blurry selfies, graduation caps, moments Derek would never get back. May sat beside her, hands folded. "How did you forgive him?" she asked. Nia looked at her gently. "I didn't forgive him for him," she said. "I forgave him for me. Hate is too heavy. I had other things to carry. But he threw us out. I know. We were just babies, and we made it," Nia said quietly. "You made it." They sat in silence, the city humming outside their window. "Real strength," Nia whispered, "is not becoming what hurt you." The next morning, May returned to room 316. Derek looked up, eyes red, face pale. "I don't deserve your kindness," he said. "I didn't come here for you," she replied. "I came to say what needed to be said." He listened. "I was 7 when I fainted in school from hunger. I was 12 when I decided I'd become a doctor, so no child would suffer like I did. I studied by candlelight. We sold firewood to pay exam fees." Tears streamed down his face. "I don't need your apology," she said. "I need you to understand. We made it without you." He sobbed quietly. "There's a care program for patients like you," she added. "You'll be transferred once you're stable. After that, we part ways." He nodded. She turned and walked out. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She didn't look back. The house sat on a quiet street, tucked behind honey-colored trees shedding gold in the autumn light. It wasn't grand, the porch paint chipped, but the windows were new. The door, solid oak. The roof didn't leak. Isla had called in a favor. Solar panels lined the back. A borehole had replaced the unreliable plumbing. Inside, the house breathed peace. No debt, no shame, no apology. It belonged to Nia. Her name, framed on the deed, hung above the mantel where a clock once ticked. On a late Friday, the home filled with noise, not soft hums, but life, laughter, footsteps, too many pots bubbling on the stove. Zora arrived from New York, suitcase, laptop, boots that clicked with confidence, braids like a crown. She spoke like a woman who led rooms. Ila flew in from Lagos, tired but glowing. She brought chocolates, music, and a second phone for her international clients. May had come home earlier. She took time off, the kind no one asked questions about. And for the first time in years, they were home, together. They didn't question it. There was a stillness to Nia now, the kind earned over long nights and longer years, a quiet that settled deep in the bones. And just like that, the rhythm returned. Zora leaned over the counter, eating rice straight from the pot. May wiped down the fridge, organizing it by category and expiration date. Ila sprawled across the couch, laptop in hand, wrapped in the same blanket she'd kept since high school. It was childhood, not repeated, but remembered. A rhythm rebuilt in real time. Nia moved between them with grace. She had waited for this moment, never demanded it, just waited. After dinner, they gathered beneath the old mango tree. The shade was deeper now, the trunk wider, but it was still theirs. They traded stories, impossible deadlines, bizarre travel, and old jokes that made them laugh until their sides ached. Zora had published an essay on motherhood and legacy. May was leading a healthcare initiative for underserved neighborhoods. Layla had signed a contract to manage the cloud infrastructure of a global company, all from her laptop. Their lives had spread like rivers, fast, wide, and unstoppable. But every one of those rivers curved back to this soil, this house, this moment. As the sky darkened, conversation turned, gently, to him. "He's still at the care facility," May said, her voice steady. "They say he asks about us sometimes," she added. "Why?" Zora muttered, rolling a blade of grass between her fingers. "Loneliness," May answered. Layla didn't look up. Let him be lonely. Nia watched from the doorway, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. She said nothing, just listened. They didn't need her permission to carry or let go of what he left behind. "I don't feel anger anymore," May said finally, "but I don't feel much else either." "We don't owe him anything," Zora replied. Layla looked up. "We forgave him, just not out loud." "Forgiveness," Zora said softly, "isn't an invitation. Mom once told me," May added, "we're never required to return to the place where we were abandoned." That truth settled like dust in quiet. Later, inside, they cleaned the kitchen together. Zora hummed a protest song. May dried dishes with surgical precision. Layla queued up a soft jazz playlist. When they were done, they joined Nia on the veranda. She sat in her favorite chair, shawl over her shoulders, a calm smile playing on her lips. "You girls made it," she said, more to herself than to them. "You made us," Zora replied. Nia shook her head gently. "No, I just cleared the path. You did the walking." May leaned against the doorframe. "Did you ever think it would be like this?" "I didn't dare," Nia said. "I just hoped." They sat together, watching stars blink to life, listening to the crickets tune up their nightly chorus. In that silence, something real happened, something healing. No vengeance, no reunion plans, just choice. They had already made theirs. Inside, their childhood beds had been replaced with grown-up frames. The windows had new curtains. The hallway held a photo from May's white coat ceremony, all of them beaming, arms wrapped tight. Later, long after the house went quiet, Nia returned to her chair. A breeze drifted through the trees. A dog barked once, then silence. She looked out into the dark and closed her eyes. She wasn't thinking of him. She hadn't in weeks. She prayed, not for reconciliation, not even for restoration. She prayed in gratitude, for survival, for peace, for the strength that held, for daughters who bore witness, for the life they built from rejection, for the world that tried to crush them and failed. And in a quiet room across town, dimly lit by hallway light and the steady beep of a heart monitor, a man stirred. He would wake, and he would ask again for the daughters he once abandoned. They would not come, but they had never left themselves. And in the house where the tree still stood, where light crept through the curtains like a promise, the strong still dwelled. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe for more, watch the next video, and explore others on the channel. And don't forget to share this one with someone who needs to hear it.